Ah, very nice. I think this is the place where the bats arrive in their greatest numbers at this time of year.
It'll be lovely. And by using a wide angle, not only will we have the bats flying in, we'll have them passing just over our heads.
The problem with bats is, 1, they fly at night, 2, they fly at night, and 3, they are phantoms which fly at night. I think what we're doing this evening is trying to share their intimacy and studying behavior which they don't necessarily want to show us.
We shouldn't forget that they're the result of 54 million years of evolution, and we don't appreciate the complexities of their society.
We share the same territory with other living creatures, without always understanding one another very well. Using a new scientific and sensitive approach, a few passionate naturalists have inverted their view on life, taking the perspective of an animal, a plant, or a landscape in order to become its most faithful interpreter, in the hope of changing the way we see the worlds of the wild. Laurent Tillon is obsessive. He devotes all his talents and much of his time to an animal which makes the imagination run wild, the bat.
The problem with the forest in midwinter is that it's sleeping. It's operating in slow motion, and so are the bats. They slow down in compliance with their biological rhythm. They have nothing left to eat, and often take shelter in the trees. They're probably all around us, but they're totally invisible.
Since childhood, Laurent has loved getting lost in forests, which probably inspired his curiosity for this woodland dweller. But 25 years ago, when he joined the National Forestry Office, he was frustrated by the lack of knowledge about the links between bats and their chosen ecosystem.
We were all inclined to believe that they depended on forests, that they lived in particular trees. But how could they be found? How could they be reached? The specialists I talked to all had the same reaction. Good luck with that. In order to understand the primordial role of bats within the woodland ecosystem, I had a myriad of mysteries to solve. That good luck struck me as a challenge.
Since then, Laurent has been exploring French forests to discover beyond the clichés how bats live, feed, and also make themselves useful. He intuitively felt that this animal was a precious ally of the woodlands. His task was immense, because France numbers 36 species of Chiroptera. The common serotine, with its short ears and long wings, calls pipistrelle half an inch in size. The common noctule, which hunts in flight. The greater horseshoe, on the lookout, hanging upside down. Daubenton's myotis, which hunts while skimming the water. This great wealth is little known to us. The popular image of bats is often that of worrying phantoms. Laurent Tillon was lucky enough to make their acquaintance in his youth.
As a kid, I was told that bats were the animals of the devil, that they sucked people's blood, that they clung to your hair, that they were to be avoided. And I always kept my distance until I was a teenager. I went into a little cave in which I found a bat the size of my thumb. It was completely inoffensive. That was when it dawned on me that I'd been lied to.
This encounter was the beginning of a long saga. Laurent started spending whole nights in the forest trying to approach these animals.
At the beginning, I could feel them darting all around me, as though they were outwitting my attempts to come close to them. I was frustrated by the intelligence of this animal, only weighing around 10 grams, and at the same time fascinated by their abilities.
Today, Laurent's fascination has not diminished, but it's now accompanied by a struggle because he's seen how extremely vulnerable bats have become. In the last 15 years, the population has dwindled by 43%. The reason? Roads, wind turbines, and also intensive farming. Faced with these threats, this naturalist took on the mission of halting the decline and inventing protective solutions. All over France, regardless of the seasons, he counts, listens, captures, and identifies the habits of Chiroptera.
We don't have the technology to study them in the trees in midwinter. Fortunately, certain species live in grottos or caves, much easier to access, which allows us to count them and follow them through the winter. Well, Bruno, it's been 20 years since I last visited this site.
You'll see how it's changed.
In Châteaudun, in the Eure-et-Loire region, there's a site which is a forerunner in the preservation of bats, a former mushroom farm.
So you've started closing the site to avoid any upheaval inside?
Yes, you're right.
It was closed to the public 2 years ago.
We've intentionally allowed the brambles to grow, and we've placed branches all around to restrict public access. This helps to preserve the site.
But are the measures efficient? Laurent and Bruno Landier, the manager of the site, are going to take an inventory to determine if closure should be amongst the solutions. Many people are unaware that noise, smoke from campfires and light can cause brutal awakenings, potentially fatal to bats.
There's another one here. Look, there's one just there and one there. We won't disturb them.
1, 2, 3. Never more than 3 seconds in front of each bat. Otherwise, the body temperature of the two men could awaken them.
There's a serratin. Ah, it's beautiful. The slightest awakening could cost them their lives, because in that moment, in the space of a few seconds, they consume a third of the reserves they've built up to get through the winter. Look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, that's great. Their one aim is to find a quiet place in which to sleep for a few weeks or even months. This sort of site is vitally important. They come to rest here, and then they stay. their heart rate slows down, and they take far fewer breaths per minute. With their stable, quite low temperature and humidity levels which remain quite high, keeping the wings moist, underground cavities are the perfect place.
The measures taken seem efficient.
We have more or less 500 individuals here.
But not enough for Laurent, who considers that the colony is still too troubled by humans. Increased protection is needed.
One possibility is putting up wire netting which stops people entering, but which bats can fly through. They can then calmly go there in winter without being bothered.
Spring has arrived. Life is awakening. Just 1.5 hours. That's the time a bat needs to come out of hibernation. From a few heartbeats per minute to up to 800 during the first hunt. This is a crucial stage in its cycle, but from one year to the next, conditions are never the same.
Some springs, the weather is particularly cold and wet, which slows down the rhythm of the whole forest. There are far fewer insects developing and filling the countryside. Bats are strictly insectivores, so they need insects, particularly during the maternity season. I remember one particular spring, a neighbor called me because she had just found a bat. I immediately went to the animal and realized that it was a baby, a tiny pipistrelle weighing hardly 2 grams, which had been left there in the middle of the day by its mother. I took the animal in hand, putting it up my shirt sleeve for protection in the warmth, and soon afterwards I discovered a colony in the gabling opposite the house. Clearly, the mother had come and left her baby at the entrance door, the point through which all the human inhabitants of the house passed. That poses a question. Did she in fact entrust her baby to us because she was no longer able to care for it herself?
Was the animal trying to grab the attention of a human? On that day, Laurent was struck by a staggering doubt which upended his scientific work. Bats live in our dwellings, but could it be just as true that we live in theirs? The biologist decided on a radical change of perspective towards them, to shift his viewpoint, to put himself in their place. How do they negotiate the countryside? How do they handle the hurdles we scatter around? And above all, how can we allow them the space they need? Laurent concluded that forest management is decisive.
I notice you've put a red dot on this one.
Upon which trees do bats depend? Young ones, old ones? And which species?
Yes, we've marked this one. We protect it. And if you look up, you'll understand why.
This one's pretty much ideal for bats.
Laurent accompanies and advises forest managers like Thomas Brand. who works here in the forest of Rambouillet.
There's a particularity here which poses something of a problem, which is the main road cutting the zone in two. The challenge is how to let bats across without them being hit by passing traffic.
In order to get about the countryside, bats need vegetation paths, known as wildlife corridors, such as hedgerows or aligned bushes and trees.
What counts for a lot of species, and the lesser horseshoe is a good example, is a suitable crossing place. They can't cross more than 10 meters without vegetation. There mustn't be a break. The distance between the trees on opposite sides can't be too great.
Not too large.
Here you have 3 meters between the tips of branches on one side and the branches opposite. When cars pass, bats tend to flee the ground, to go upwards, while those higher up only need to come down a bit and they find the branches they need to follow, which direct them to the other side. They only have a 3-meter gap to fill. That's perfect.
It's a sort of pedestrian crossing.
A suitable forest for bats is also one which is rich in biodiversity. These little flying mammals are insectivores. They eat mosquitoes, beetles, butterflies, and caterpillars. But the presence of these insects depends on the richness of the undergrowth, deadwood, and mushrooms. This is an ecosystem with a delicate balance, in which the bat has its role to play. Laurent often visits a massif close to where he lives to take its pulse. The forest here is a reference point for him, which he regularly consults. Today, he's come to check the balance between insects, trees, and bats.
Seb, I found a little forest clearing which seems quite good.
I've also been in a clearing since we last spoke. I'm waiting for the rain to stop before having a look around.
Ah, there are a lot of black marks on this tree. Hang on, I'll call you back. Show me an oak leaf and I'll show you a concentration of sugar, starch and energy. And there are plenty of little animals which love eating oak leaves. One of the notable ones is a small chenille, the green oak tortrix. Yes, these are definitely tortrixes, and the leaves have been a bit nibbled at. It remains to be seen if it's the chenilles. You can have 100,000 per hectare, and when they appear in the spring, they can really put in question the health of the tree. In any case, I confirm that I'm in a zone of tortrixes. I have some oak leaves in quite a state. This is where our friends the bats come into their own. They settle in the canopy of the trees and eat the chenilles. Each bat is able to eat as many as 250 chenilles in a single night. A colony of 150 to 200 bats is capable of eating up to 1,250,000 chenilles. That's why taking care of this small bat allows the forest to stay in good health.
The more bats a forest contains, the better it's protected from ravaging insects. So how can bats be induced to settle here in numbers and to remain here? This question is at the very heart of Laurent Tillon's work, and over the course of his observations, he's found the key. It's old trees which are needed. Because the older they are, the more potential housing they provide.
In a forest, to find bats, you need to find woodpecker nests. These nests are dug out of the tree by these woodland birds, the beak of which is like a chisel. And woodpecker nests are like shoeboxes, which are big enough to house between several dozen and a few hundred bats. Something very particular about forest bats is that after the first year, the males are thrown out of the female group. Consequently, the males have a life completely outside the group. They're not particularly fussy where they live. The females, on the other hand, stay together to help each other for the birth and upbringing of the one offspring that each of them has in the course of a season. And to ensure the survival of these babies, while some of them hunt and drink so as to produce milk and feed the babies, the others remain calmly in the nest. And during the course of the night, the teams switch. Those which went hunting return to the nest, allowing those who remained to go out into the forest to feed.
Long hours of observation have taught Laurent that bats often change roosts in order to escape predators such as owls and martins, or to avoid the proliferation of parasites. So a lot of woodpecker nests are needed for a colony to thrive.
Margot, is this the net we're going to use?
Yes, 9 meters.
Ah, great spotted woodpecker.
Like each summer for the last 10 years, Laurent and a handful of scientists come to the forest of Troncé for a large-scale mission which lasts several days.
That's not bad, past this underneath.
This forest in the Allier region, which houses colonies of Bechstein's bats, is in a way the French chiropterologist's laboratory. This is where they regularly capture, and thereby have physical contact with the animal, outside of the hibernation period. The mission begins with the installing of an ingenious canopy net, manufactured by the scientists. It will be used to capture a female Bechstein's bat in order to trace the position of its colony, in the hope of being able to closely observe a number of individuals.
Perfect, we'll stretch it out completely.
Ready.
By evaluating the health of the Bechstein's bats, they'll be able to determine if they're being assisted by the forestry management practiced here. Namely, a majority of old oaks, with a lesser level of broadleaf trees such as beech, hornbeam and hazel.
Okay, I think we're good. So now we just need to wait for nightfall. If the ladies are kind enough to come out.
Waiting for bats means looking out for the invisible, scrutinizing the darkness in the hope of capturing a furtive presence.
At dusk, the forest is nothing but feelings and interminable waiting.
Up, there's flight up above.
It's stress and waiting at the same time. Will they come?
Laurent?
We're good. There's one in the net, Margot.
Bechstein.
She's on my side. There. Good on my side. And there she is. We've got her.
The gloves and mask are indispensable in order to avoid the transmission of viruses from the bat to the human, as well as from the human to the bat.
That's it. Can you turn this way?
A little marvel.
The small female Bechstein's bat doesn't know it, but she is now part of the operation. Equipped with an emitter, she will be the scientist's guide.
Time for the equipment.
We check that the emitter is working and is at the right frequency.
Are you ready? That's it, my lovely. In 2 weeks, you'll no longer have this emitter on your back. It will fall off. You'll have lost it. She's docile, isn't she? Go on, you're free.
The emitter weighs less than half a gram, meaning a little less than 5% of the animal's weight. Just less than the authorized limit for flying wildlife. Laurent hopes that tonight, she will lead them to her colony.
So, I adjust to the frequency of the emitter we placed on the little animal last night. Ah. Now that's good news. She's still in the sector. The signal is strong, a little bip from the emitter. So let's trace the signal. We're off. She's in front of us. She's just in front of me. Fantastic, a beautiful woodpecker's nest. It's really high.
There could be 30 in this nest, if not more. The dwelling is situated 24 meters above the ground. Getting up to it requires climbing techniques similar to those used in mountaineering.
Up until the end of the 90s, the few scientists who studied bats in forests used nesting boxes. That is to say, artificial ways of studying them in the trees. At the beginning of the 2000s, when I arrived, I was the first to take a different perspective, to observe them in situ, right up in the trees.
That was when Laurent thought up this simple but effective system for experiencing life in the forest as a bat does, albeit just for one night.
So that's it, Stephanie's lying in his hammock. He's installed the capturing equipment just in front of the roost. Perfect, we're ready. Let's go.
The animals leave their roost one after another and are delicately slipped into cloth bags, which are lowered to the ground using a zip line.
People collect all sorts of things. With me, it's bats. It takes a lot of work. So, who are you? Ah, you're a pretty little female Bechstein's bat. With a nice pink pointed muzzle. Let's look at your teeth. Open wide, please. The point of capturing them is to determine the state of health of the colonies. I'll just measure your forearm, weigh you, and free you. 42.6. With the animal in hand, you can see its true state of health. Does it have parasites? Has it been injured? And you can also examine its reproductive state. If it's reproduced, then the colony is probably in good health. You're even in the post-weaning period. You've given milk this year. Go on, you're free. A second one. Oh, this animal has been ringed in the past. Ow, ow, ow. You bite. You're putting up a fight. The first time I captured a bat, I had a feeling of ambivalence between this tiny animal I had in my hands, which seemed so fragile, and at the same time this certitude that I was dealing with an animal which had competence, capacities and strength above average in the animal world. The small white spots indicate that she's had holes in her wings on several occasions and that they've closed up again. Incredible. A particularly developed wing allowing flight, which is unique for a mammal. A highly developed rib cage. It's crazy to think that they're all from the same family. The aunts, the mothers, the babies, the grandmothers, everybody together. Ah, yes, you're not happy. You're grumbling a bit. Well, you know what? You've earned your freedom.
The conclusions of the researchers this evening are categorical. The colony is in good health, which confirms that the choices in forestry management made here are good for bats, and consequently for the biodiversity in general. Capturing operations like the one organized by Laurent are not regular occurrences because they take a lot of energy from the humans and animals alike. But there exists another method of monitoring bat populations. It consists in listening to them. These animals communicate, and above all travel, using ultrasound. In recent years, new technologies have made it possible to capture and partly decipher this language, a science known as bioacoustics, of which Laurent is a specialist.
Southern Sologne, one of the last French bastions of the common noctule.
He dedicates 6 weeks a year to training colleagues from all over the territory in listening to bats, to better understand and protect them.
So basically, we're going to divide up the forest. For example, you, Leia, will take position 7A12. In the afternoons, we'll check the positions for that evening.
So what are the color codes? For oak trees?
In fact, it's the green ones. Everything marked in green is an oak. They're the ones to target. Nightfall is at 21:20, so we need to begin at around 21:35. And for example, if a pipistrelle passes, you hear... That's quite short, so it's one contact. It stops at 5 seconds, so also one contact. That was 8 seconds, so 2 contacts, because it's 5 seconds plus a period less than 5 seconds. So don't hesitate to record. If it needs recording, you record it. Then we can count the number of bats there are later on, sitting at the computer. So that's it, we're off.
See you later.
To find his listening position, Laurent uses the forest as a bat would. Where are the best dwellings? Where are the insects? Where can they drink, fly about, hide?
If I were a noctule, I would hunt here. It's very open, and at the same time it's surrounded by large trees. You just need a nice roost and you should be all right. Oh wow, have I found a roost? You could get 80 noctules in there. It's perfect. A lovely woodpecker's nest.
It's from the foot of this nest that Laurent will listen to the colony. Bats emit sounds which are generally above 20 kilohertz, which is above the audible range for humans.
A pipistrelle just passed.
But this machine makes it possible to hear ultrasound.
Without this machine, I'd have trouble seeing them. She went past in 7 to 8 seconds. Because they need to fly at night, bats are endowed with a special system for seeing their environment, for seeing their prey. This system is called echolocation. They're flying just overhead. It consists in the animal emitting a very loud cry. This cry travels through the air, hits an obstacle, and the sound waves which bounce back off that obstacle return to the bat's ears, allowing it to deduce what's happening in the surroundings.
We are incapable of perceiving the world as a bat does, to think of it as a sound landscape. But Laurent Tillon, in his role as interpreter, is constantly weaving links between them and us to try and give us an idea of their sensory experience.
Imagine yourself as a bat in the middle of the forest. Close your eyes and try to advance by opening your eyes just for very short intervals to acquire an approximative image of the environment all around you. To start with, you might manage to cover a few meters without encountering an obstacle. But when you come near to one, you should start blinking your eyes faster and faster in order to avoid the obstacle. Well, a bat sees objects around it in much the same way. How's it going, geeks?
The following day, Laurent teaches his colleagues how to decipher their nighttime recordings.
Shall I play it back?
Yes.
They will learn things about the species encountered the previous night.
Look, she's there. You're in a range of frequencies above 30 kilohertz. These are not large creatures like serotyns. This is more like... So a series of frequencies before hanging on a single note. So that's a Nothusis pipistrelle.
The following week, the forestry workers repeat the operation. This needs to happen 3 times in a season if the sound inventory is to form a reliable basis upon which to build protective strategies adapted to each ecosystem. There is one species of bat which would be difficult to follow via sound recordings because its territory is vast and it flies at high altitude. The greater noctule. With its 40-centimeter wingspan, weighing in at 50 grams, 10 times more than the pipistrelle, it's Europe's largest bat. It feeds on birds, and its hunting ground covers an entire wooded massif.
It's a very impressive capturing site.
It's very pretty. The setting is fabulous.
The greater noctule has been spotted in this undulating massif in the Dordogne region. So the National Forests Office has decided to mount a scientific operation. It's a unique opportunity to learn more about this species, which is extremely rare in Europe.
In which direction does this turn?
Stop pulling, stop pulling.
Laurent accompanies Thomas Darnis, the organization's noctule specialist, in capturing individuals to be fitted with GPS emitters. To attract the animals, the team uses a decoy, a loudspeaker which emits calls recorded in another colony.
The wind's turned.
There's one, a greater noctule.
We've got one.
Greater noctule in the nets.
It's fantastic. It's enormous. Wow. It's fabulous, Tom.
I tell you, if I wasn't wearing gloves,
Your fingers would be torn to shreds. Wow, it's a really enormous creature. Let's take a look at the wing. You can see it's very long, designed for flying high.
So I'll hold it while you apply the glue.
Thanks to this GPS emitter, which registers the creature's latitude, longitude, and flight velocity, the scientists made some surprising discoveries. The creature was recorded the following evening 110 kilometers from its roost, representing a round trip of at least 220 kilometers in a single night. A vast hunting ground, obliging the organization to devise a protection strategy adapted to this exceptional species, if it wishes the colony to remain. What happens when the forest disappears? When the territorial continuity is abruptly severed by a fire, what happens to the bats? One year after the raging fires which devastated the Landes forest, Laurent Tillon was called to the Teste de Buc site, where 7,000 hectares of forest had gone up in smoke.
We're entering the zone which completely burned. A few pines remain in tiny pockets. I confess that I'm feeling a bit stressed.
The year before the fire, a colony of greater noctules had been identified. The disappearance of this rare species would be dramatic. But they're not the only focus of attention. Many other animal and vegetable species cohabited here in this very particular ecosystem of a forest beside the sea. At the National Forestry Office, all the naturalists are on tenterhooks.
Bird control, sir. Careful. Don't do anything stupid.
There aren't many here.
Not many? You've heard hardly anything? What did you find?
Not a whole lot.
What was there?
There are quite a few missing. Very few woodlarks, or tree pipits, which should be here. There are nonetheless a few interesting individuals. There's a pair of falcons, which are starting to settle. Well, let's say there's hope.
Fingers crossed, because, you know, the area where the colony of greater noctules was got burned. So I'm off to look for zones where it could potentially have settled, in the hope that they haven't burned.
Have the greater noctules survived the catastrophe? And if so, do they have enough to eat?
There are some insects. It's crazy, it's completely burnt. And yet there's a first crust, beneath which there is bark, which is still alive.
Always deciphering, reading the forest, even where nothing seems to remain.
All the pines around me are dead. Not a single one living.
A year after the disaster, Laurent cherishes the slightest sign of resilience.
There's still resin. We'll try to hear if any bats are coming this far, in this totally devastated zone. There's a greater noctule. Those little blops, those little bursting bubbles. Oh, wow. A greater noctule is once again overhead.
They're still here, proving that despite appearances, the biodiversity has not totally disappeared. Or perhaps it's being reborn, thanks to the efforts of bats, nature, and the forests.
It's a bit overexposed.
Autumn has arrived. The last moments for observing the bats have come.
So we're going to film in 250 frames per second.
And that's the other camera that you can move as you like.
Yes.
This year, Laurent is trying a unique experiment, helping with the filming of an entire night within a colony alongside Tanguy Stockley, a filmmaker who devotes his work to them.
I'll tell you something. I spend my time dealing with frustration as I try to interpret what I hear without seeing it. And you go and watch behavior. Social interaction between animals that we don't detect in the same way with our technology.
Click.
There's one. It's coming. It's coming.
Wait, there are two of them.
Oh, yes, there are two. Wow, that's magnificent.
I love the movements of flight. It's beautiful behavior. You can get close-ups. Click.
These high-speed cameras and the infrared lighting make it possible to see the unseeable.
There's another one.
They seem to be playing. That's just incredible.
And that's what's fabulous about the technology you use. We probably have access to another level of information that wasn't available before.
Yes. You see behavior that you don't see with the naked eye.
That's true. You can tell they spend an incredible amount of time communicating with each other, recounting things. And although we don't know what they're saying, it's clear that they're incredibly social animals.
Yes, yes.
They live in grottos that we've dug, our cellars, our roofs, our nooks and crannies, and also this forest, which is so vital.
When you rub shoulders with them, when you study them, when you watch them, they're living their lives. And sometimes it's as though they're genuinely curious about us.
They are our phantoms, as we are theirs. For their future and for ours, Laurent Tillon shows us that it's essential to understand them and encounter them. And to encounter them requires no great effort. We just have to let our feelings and emotions take over.